Welcome to New York, Florida Crosstalk. Florida transplants with a New York attitude. We give you fact-based viewpoints on today's current events. Join John and Mike where no topic is off limits.
Hello and welcome to New York, Florida Crosstalk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John. And the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Gun rights versus gun control. Should everybody have a gun?
Wow, that's a question that I think is been a big debate for a long time. I think it's not as simple as a lot of people like to make it out to be. You have on one side of the aisle, you have people saying majority of the people should have a gun because they're the good guys with the gun. Then you have on the other side of the aisle, and I'm talking again extremes, where no one should have a gun or very few people should have a gun. You know, in the light of the event that just recently happened in Orlando, it's gotta touch a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and maybe even sway an opinion one way or another for people like myself who really didn't have a strong opinion prior to this.
Well, I mean, you've got the worst shooting on U.S. history on the U.S. grounds, and 49 people died during the shooting.
Was it 49 or 50?
49 actual victims.
Okay.
The 50th one was actually the shooter himself, so
Oh, wow. Okay.
he's being taken out of the equation.
Right, I get you. I hear you. You know, it's now, to be fair, like I mentioned before, I didn't have a very strong opinion. I'm very opinionated. A lot of people know that.
Not you.
But, you know, when it comes to something like guns, it's never been really a passion of mine. It's never been a hobby of mine. I can appreciate the safety aspect of it and the hunting aspect of it, the sportsman aspect of it. But would it be fair to say that you're a lot more you're passionate about it? It's something that's a hobby of yours. You're a collector of it, and it's a subject that you're very passionate about.
Well, my biggest problem with guns in general is there is no my side and your side. It isn't gun control versus gun rights. There's common sense gun safety. And if people would stop looking at it as control or as rights and start working with what we currently have, there'd be a lot less problems. I mean, all the stuff that Congress has been trying to pass for a while now, and it's not doing any good. They need to find something that's working.
Okay, so what do you mean by what Congress is trying to pass? Specifically, what?
Well, the filibuster the other day. They're talking about closing up the gun show loophole,
Right.
which I don't have a problem with. I think everybody that buys a gun should have a background check. That's only common sense. People on a no-fly list not being able to buy a gun. Well, that's common sense too. Obviously, if you can't fly for one reason or another, you shouldn't be allowed to walk into a gun store and buy a gun.
See, now on the other side of that equation, I'm hearing a lot of people who are mentioning how there are a lot of mistakes that can happen,
Right.
and people get on no-fly lists. I mean, what's your opinion about that? You know, a person not being able to fly because it's a mistake, but it also stops them from getting a gun.
Well, in all reality, if you think about it, being delayed, not stopping them completely, but being delayed until it's able to be investigated is not unreasonable. Now, if you're just stopping them and not giving them a path to solve the issue or prove themselves, or find some way to reverse the finding, then yes, I got a problem with it. But just to be delayed buying it, okay, you didn't pass the background check, why? Okay, I'm on a no-fly list. Why am I on this no-fly list? It might be something as stupid as a computer error.
Right.
And that can be solved, and then at that point, you'd be able to buy a gun at that point.
Now, what about the situation, for example, with what recently happened? Person is on a no-fly list or is on a possible suspect and then gets cleared. I mean, how do you stop that?
Unfortunately, that's one of those ones that would probably slip through the cracks. I mean, there's probably other things they could have done. They could have had a secondary database or something that put him on at least a watch list for buying guns. But even still, buying 2 guns at once isn't really that unheard of.
Right.
But if he would have bought an excessive amount of ammunition or something like that, maybe it would have flagged him. Maybe it would have let the FBI know, hey, maybe we need to go take a second look at this guy.
Now, from your views, I again want to make it clear, you are a gun advocate. You have guns. You're a collector.
Definitely.
It's something that's been a passion of yours since I knew you. You know a whole lot about them. You've gone and you go to the gun shows, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yep.
So it's not something that you're really pro or anti. I think, is it fair to say you're trying to come to a common sense approach here?
Definitely. I mean, a common sense view of guns is what it should be altogether anyways. Everybody keeps screaming about rights or control. It's nothing to do with that. It's just common sense.
But see, I think this brings my point again, where it comes down to power and corruption. You have a lobby, you have an organization like the NRA, you have, and once any organization or any type of team of people become too powerful or become very powerful, it almost seems like there's some sort of corruption or some sort of power hungriness to it. Why won't an organization want to sit down and talk about safety? Are they afraid that talk is going to lead to people taking their weapons away? I don't get it.
Well, okay, I've heard this argument from the NRA before. They're worried about a national database that they can use to track all guns so that the government can come in and take your guns away. Well, I'll tell you what, Hawaii has a database. You register your gun when you go to Hawaii. That is part of the United States. They haven't gone in and confiscated any of their guns or anything. So having your name in a database that you own guns or what guns you own really shouldn't be a problem if you're doing something legal.
Okay, and can you see, or do you think can you see the point of somebody on the extreme, or not, I won't even say extreme, but on the side of the people where they say, I don't want the government to have a database. I want to have my freedom. I don't want them to be able to know what I have, how much I have, and everything else. Can you see that point, or do you think that's too much of an extremist view?
I think it's an extremist view, because that's just like saying everybody on my street should own a gun or should be able to own a gun, regardless of how many times they've been arrested or what they've done wrong. That's just it's a ridiculous view. Everybody should not own a gun. There's people that I wouldn't trust with a baseball bat out there, and there'd be no way I'd give them a gun.
Well, all right. Well, let me ask you this: what's your thought on that statement, which I hear a lot, which is a good guy with a gun takes out a bad guy with a gun. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Well, in a way, it's true.
Okay.
Because what do we send in when there's an active shooter? We send in a cop with a gun.
Okay.
Okay, to me, he's a trained person with a handgun, and he's able to stop that shooter.
Right.
Anybody who is trained, properly trained, with a gun should be able to stop a shooter. Now, the problem with that comes from the states that don't require any training. The state of Florida being one of them, you can go into a store, buy a handgun, go through a basic background check, 3 days later, come back and pick up that handgun, and you now own a pistol that can basically kill somebody. Now, you're not legally allowed to carry it, but what's to stop you too?
True. Okay. Well, hopefully laws. But let me ask you this: what does it take for that person to legally be able to carry it then?
You actually have to go through a short instructional course, and depending on where you go is what you're taught. I've seen everything from extremes of going through an application and him telling you, oh, well, this is what you're supposed to do with a gun, this is what you're not supposed to do with it. Okay, let's fill out our application and we're done.
And how long does that take normally?
About 3 hours, I think. I've seen variations in the length of the different courses in Florida. I've seen them as little as 3 hours. I've seen them as much as 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
And then you pay a fee and you submit it to the Department of Agriculture, which is kind of funny. And within 90 days, you get an answer, yes or no. And you get your permit.
Okay, now, this is Florida, correct?
Correct.
Are there any other states out there that have even more lenient laws for open carry?
Yeah, actually, exactly. Arizona is a place where you can go in and buy a gun, and once again, wait your 3 days, and you can strap that gun on your side and walk outside with it.
Oh.
You're not allowed to conceal that weapon, but you could walk openly down the street with a gun strapped to your side.
And all right, and
that's with no training. That's with nothing.
now you hear these arguments about different places. Let's say, I know you always hear about Chicago being one of the most violent. What do you say, or what's your thoughts on places like that that have very strict gun laws versus a place like Arizona that has very lenient gun laws, and the much more violence happening in a place like Chicago? What do you think is the reason for that?
Well, part of the problem is if you can't buy a gun one place, you're going to go another place to get it. That's like that for anything that's illegal in the area that you're living in. Think about it in the lines of marijuana.
Okay.
Marijuana was coming in through California, through Florida, stuff like that, because that's where it was the most popular. That was where it was coming into the country and that. So that's where the places where you went to get it. And the same thing with guns. Okay, you can't buy them in Chicago because the strict gun laws, but at the same time, there's other states around that are easier to get them. Okay. And everybody's out to make a buck nowadays. I don't care. There's crooked dealers everywhere. And you hear about it all the time on the news about gun stores being shut down because they're selling guns to people that shouldn't get them.
Yeah, that's you know, these are important views. I think the rhetoric you hear on TV, that you hear from people arguing, too many people fall into the I got to take one side or another, and they're not thinking of it as we have a problem, we have a challenge, we need to meet this challenge without taking the rights away from law-abiding citizens. You know, because I do believe in the good guy with the gun aspect, to the extent of, I know as a child growing up, if I'm in a place and there's a lot of people in this place, whether it be a big room or an organization, and a cop comes in or a military man comes in and he has a gun, I actually feel safer at that point. Because in my view, whether it's true or not, in my view, this person has been trained and they're used to having a gun. But now if I have a whole room full of people and let's say 60% of them have a gun and it's just everybody and anybody, I don't know what the training was. And if they just basically got it, now I feel like I'm driving in a parking lot or I'm driving through the streets where maybe 60% of those people have just a permit and they don't know how to drive. You know what I mean?
I understand that type of thinking. Based on the NRA's view, the more people that have a gun, the less likely a crime is going to be committed. And in certain cases, I can actually see that. Think of it on a criminal point of view.
Okay.
The last place you're going to walk into to try and rob is going to be a gun store.
Sure.
But now, do you think that everybody is capable of handling a gun? No, I don't.
No.
I mean, you need some knowledge, at least of the gun. You need to have at least gone out and practiced with it. You need to know your basic laws in order to even carry a gun. Because, I mean, there's still places that are marked down as no carry or gun-free zones, as everybody knows them by. And some of them are just common sense. Some of them people don't really know about.
Right.
And everybody says that, this incident that happened over in Orlando, that happened in what they call a gun-free zone. Okay, it was a bar. Alcohol and guns do not mix. I don't care if you're a good guy with a gun or a bad guy with a gun. Firearms and heightened emotions from alcohol do not mix. We see it time and time again on the news where somebody comes out of a bar and shoots somebody.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I there's a bar not far from where I hang around, and there's constant arguments and fights that go out that, they come out of the, now I'm not saying I've ever seen gun violence there, I haven't, but I'm constantly seeing arguments, fights, people getting ready to fight, and what happens if somebody does have a weapon there?
I mean, you add that into the mix, and that's just common sense. So this whole thing that happened over in Orlando, I don't think it happened because it was a gun-free zone. I think it happened because of a hate crime.
Okay.
Plain and simple.
Well, and there's even rumors, and I don't know if it's been proven fact yet, that actually he might have been confused himself because of I guess, the way he was brought up and his beliefs on one end and his emotions and feelings on the other end. He might have even hated himself.
Well, the FBI actually did a study on that, and they actually released some information correlating to that, that a lot of the people that are conflicted with their gender identity or whatever you want to call it, actually turn out to be the violent type because they're fighting within themselves and they can't accept it.
Right, and I can see that. I can that becomes a mental issue at that point.
Right.
It's got to be hard, but at that point, you think somebody's that's capable of going out and doing that. There's got to be a lot going on in their minds, and
I mean, it's really unfortunate what happened over there. But in that particular case, I don't think anything that we could have done could have foreseen that. I mean, he works for a company called G4S,
right,
which actually holds government contracts for security in that, and even as far as going for the defense. And he's been working for him for 9 years. Now, if somebody were to catch something like that, why couldn't they have caught it in the 9 years he's worked for him?
True, and there have been reports, and this is always Monday morning quarterback,
right?
That he got angry a lot, and people didn't want to work with him because of some of the comments he made. What do? Do you go back and you actually go back and say, what am I thinking? You know what I mean? Or should have I made a move? Should have I reported something? There are a lot of different reports on his anger management, maybe. But that leads me to another question for you, because you did mention that you don't think anything could have been done in that sense with what happened there. a big issue coming up now is possibly stopping the sale of assault, what they consider assault rifles. I guess something like the AR-15. Or what's your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, first of all, the definition of an assault rifle. Now, the word actually came from a German word, and basically it meant a military type firearm.
Okay.
The U.S. adopted it to mean any type of military firearm. A lot of people see assault rifles as being fully automatic machine gun type things that are used in war. That isn't actually true.
Okay.
The last definition that our government gave us for an assault rifle would be things like and it has to meet two of these different things in order to be considered an assault rifle. A removable clip, where you load the bullets in.
Okay.
A stock that is either folding or collapsing in some way.
What is that?
That's the part that goes up against your shoulder.
Okay.
And some of them come with folding stocks or collapsible stocks to make it smaller. Easier portability, or in war situations, if it's actually a military style firearm, it makes it easier to fire it one-handed. A flash suppressor. Now that's something that I just don't understand myself. That's a little thing that screws on the end of a gun that helps silence it a little bit, and at the same time breaks down that bright flash that comes out of the end of the gun when it goes off.
Okay.
Now, to me, what's that even got to do with an assault rifle? I mean, there's shotguns out there that meet all of those criteria.
So basically, there's not a good enough definition. But again, saying that, isn't it, we were talking about it the other day, isn't it there's some sort of a law that a quote-unquote assault rifle or an AR-15, something like that, can be purchased easier than, say, a handgun, and being able to walk out of a store rather than having to wait for a 3-day background check? Is that true?
Yes, that is actually true. There is no 3-day wait for any type of rifle, shotgun, anything like that. The 3-day wait is part of the Brady bill, and that only includes pistols.
Wow. So
there is still a background check done, but it's one of those instant background checks. And we've already proven that the U.S. government does not have a reliable database that is updated regularly enough by our police departments, by our own government, that keeps track of violent offenders or people that really shouldn't be getting them.
So is this people that had guns for violent crimes, or just violent offenders?
Just violent offenders. It's up to the local police departments to submit their findings. Say, for instance, if somebody was beating on their wife or something, they were arrested for it. It's up to that police department to submit it to the federal database called NICS. So that way, if they go to try and buy a gun, it stops them. But part of the problem is the police departments in that are screaming that they don't have enough money to keep updating all these databases and everything. You think this would be something that would be like just something that would happen?
Priority.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I also heard about this, which I was kind of surprised. And I think they said this is due to the NRA's opposition to it, the lack of a computerized record system for gun sales, even gun sales that a crime was committed with.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody thinks that if there's a database, they're going to lose their guns. The government's going to come in and get them. That's unrealistic. We have 350 million guns in the U.S. There's only 250 million people here. So that's more than one gun for every household. If they honestly believe that the government is capable of even coming in to take their guns away, maybe they need to go talk to somebody. Seriously, though. I mean, if you've got that many guns, it's ridiculous to think that somebody's going to take them away from you. There's another thing with they see this as a public health issue. But the NRA, once again, has stopped our government from the CDC from doing a study to even find out what gun violence is doing.
Now, why do you think they're stopping these studies? What's the purpose? Are they thinking that these studies are going to be skewed, or are they thinking about these studies are going to lead to people not being able to get guns and they want more money for their industry? Or, I mean, what is the purpose of stopping the study?
I honestly don't see anything. I don't see anything wrong with doing a study. People do studies every day, and they're still doing the studies, well, maybe not with government grants or anything, but there's still studies going on. But a lot of it's being done with speculation.
Right, because they're not considered official studies then. They're
Right.
not, right.
Right. And, I mean, they do have some ways of figuring out, how many guns were made, how many actually left the country. So they're speculating how many guns that are actually here. So that the 350 million is a guesstimate.
Wow.
Now, how many are actually here could be astronomically higher.
Right.
Because guns have a long life. If they're maintained at all, they'll last you forever.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's not like a car where, 7 years down the road, it's ready for the junkyard.
Right, right, right.
I mean, a gun is something that you can hand down through several generations, and as long as it's maintained, it's still in just as good a condition.
So, okay, so based on your, pretty decent knowledge on the passion that you have on the guns and as a collector and everything else, what are some things that we can do to minimize or avoid? I almost get the feeling like other countries are looking at us and saying, that's a country full of crazy cowboys, and I don't mean cowboys in a bad way. I'm just saying that there's like no rule. Nobody wants to listen to anything. It's a bunch of people who just want to shoot around their guns. I mean, I don't know. Are other countries looking at us in that way, or are they? How do you stop all this? Because it's getting out of hand. Do you agree, or?
Oh, it's definitely out of hand. It's been out of hand. Part of our problem is, and this is where I think it needs to start. I'm not talking gun control. I'm not talking gun rights. I'm talking what is already in place that should be working that is not.
Okay.
We live in the age of the computers. You can look up anything in a matter of seconds on the internet.
Right.
Why can't our government actually run a name and tell if that person's ever had a felony or ever had an assault or ever had a DUI or something like that?
Isn't that one of the things that the NRA is fighting against, is having that database of people?
Well, this is the general background check. This is the NICS system.
Okay, there's a general background check.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So that's a system that needs to work, first of all. That's already in place. That's already something that's there. You don't have to fight whether we need more control or less control. It's there. What we need to do is make it work for us now. Get the local governments, get the local police departments, get them to integrate their reports with this system. That would probably cut back, I would say, probably half the gun sales that shouldn't be happening. It would stop those.
Wow, that's a large number. If that's, I'm sure a guesstimate, but that's a large number.
Yeah, I mean, it is a guesstimate. Another thing that Obama worked on closing up was the gun show loophole.
What's your thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem with doing a background check anytime I buy a handgun or anytime I buy a gun for that matter, because I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't have a problem with them running it. Sure, it costs me $20 every time I run it, but big deal. I'm spending $300, $400, $500, $600 on a gun.
Right.
What's $20?
Right.
So I don't have a problem with it. It's the people that don't want their activities to be tracked that have the problem with it. And if you don't want your activities to be tracked, what are you doing wrong? I mean, in New York, Obviously I came from Buffalo, New York. In order to buy a handgun there, you had to have a concealed weapons permit. In order to get that concealed weapons permit, you actually have to go through at the time it was a 6-hour course. I had to have references. They talked to my neighbors. They talked to my job. They actually had to have. They did this background check on me that wasn't just running it through a computer. And then I had to go before a judge to actually tell him why I wanted to carry a gun. Now, after all that, it took me almost a year to get that permit. And once I got that permit, any handgun that I buy, once again, there's a 3-day wait on it, and that handgun had to appear on my permit, which meant the police department knew I had that gun. Did I have a problem with any of that? No. Was it a little bit of extra red tape? Yeah. But what harm did it do? I still had the gun.
Right. And you know, and I guess when you're looking at it in that way, it's not like you're buying a new computer or you're buying a keyboard or you're buying a phone. You're buying something that is dangerous, something that somebody can cause more than just harm, death, everything else. So is it really that little inconvenience? Is it really an inconvenience, or is it something that should be standard?
I'm just as bad as the next guy. When I go out and buy something, I like to have it right then and there.
Right.
The Amazon Prime, gotta love it.
Right.
Gotta have that stuff the next day, and if not, 2 days later.
Right.
But at the same time, I own handguns. I own rifles. I own shotguns. If I go out and buy another one, do I have to have it right on the spot? No. Could I wait 3 days? Sure. It'd be nice to be able to have it right on the spot, but is it gonna make that big of a difference? Not really.
Right. And I think something that you're seeing on both sides now is the talk about terrorism and the talk about how these guns are being purchased very easily, not having to go through backgrounds and things like that. In the Washington Post, I recently read that it says here that ISIS and Al-Qaeda have urged U.S. followers to take advantage of gun laws to launch attacks. That should tell you something, that something needs to be changed.
Yeah, I believe that anybody that sells more than one gun a year, and let's face it, I own a lot of guns. When I moved from New York to Florida, I sold most of my guns.
Okay.
I did it for financial reasons because I had a lot of military firearms. They were worth a lot of money, so I sold them. I moved out here and I bought more guns. Now I'm more into the pistols and stuff like that as opposed to the rifles and shotguns. I still do have a couple, but in all reality, I'll have those the rest of my life.
Right.
It's not something that you buy and sell on a regular basis. There may be another dealer or something that, I want to trade this gun for this gun type deal. But that's done when they already own guns. I'm not gonna find a guy on the street, hey, you want to buy a gun? It's a working around the law is what it's doing.
Right.
And that's how, between that and careless people leaving their guns everywhere you could name. Recently in the news, some woman left her handgun in a bathroom. Another guy in New York left his gun on a soccer field.
Wow.
Those people right there should be charged with criminal charges. When you have a weapon, you should be responsible for that weapon, where it's at, what's happening with it. One of the biggest arguments are all these kids getting a hold of guns and shooting themselves and shooting other people's. Those parents should go to jail for whatever happens. If a kid dies, that parent should go to jail for murder.
Wow.
That's the way I feel, because you're responsible for that gun, just like as if you pulled the trigger yourself.
Wow. I mean, that's something that I can see a debate on both sides. I understand where you're coming from with that. I think it basically comes down to we can't treat guns like you're buying a pack of cigarettes, or not even like you're buying an apparatus from the store. It's something that you got to take responsibility for. It's something that you need to be trained for. Like I said, when I see somebody coming into a crowded area and it's a policeman, he has a firearm on him, or it's a military individual, you feel safe. You feel like, oh, this guy's here just in case there's something wrong going on. Always felt like that. But again, they have the training. Your thought behind that is they have the training. They know what they're doing.
At the same time, you've got this whole debate where concealed carry versus open carry. Now, you say when you walk into a place, you see the handgun. Okay, that's open carry. I'm not going to take a stance either way on that. I personally, given the option, I would carry concealed, just because I'm using it for personal protection. I don't want to advertise to everybody that I've got it. When I pull it out, I want it to be a complete surprise.
Right.
But that's my own feelings. Now, at the same time, if I'm out camping or something, I will carry openly, just because of the fact of being able to, we've got rattlesnakes and stuff down here.
Yeah.
You're walking through the woods, you hear a rattlesnake, I'd rather take a shot at it. And I don't want to have to lift my shirt to pull it out to do that.
Right.
Now, that's all personal preference. I won't take a stand either way, because I think that's, but I think as a cop, I would prefer people carry openly. I'd rather know if somebody's got a gun than have it hidden underneath their shirt.
Makes sense.
But at the same time, when you walk up and meet me out at the beach or out at the mall or something, you don't know I'm carrying. That's the whole idea of concealed carry.
Right. Right. And the thing is, I guess, just like with a cop, just like with the military personnel, if you know that the training, if you see a person, and it could be just an average person off the street, if you see him carrying and you know that the training that was put in place in order for him to carry was sufficient enough, and you would feel safer. You would feel like that's a good guy with a gun.
Well, part of the problem is with that is every state is different. Until we get some type of standard across all states, and which I think it's ridiculous not to have to begin with. When you go from Florida to Georgia, the rules change drastically. For example, you can't carry near a house of worship in Georgia. And down here in Florida, I actually know of a church that everybody in the congregation carries, including the reverend that's there.
Wow.
Up in Georgia, it's legal to open carry. So it changes as close as going from one state to the next. And it makes it very hard for people to set some kind of a standard. You need to set a standard that everybody can be happy with, and make it nationwide.
Well, see, I think this is the reason it's so complicated in this country is because, it just goes on a wide spectrum of issues, from guns to everything else, because you have one side looking more at the country as a unit, one unit, where you look at other people who talk about state rights, and so you're going to constantly have this back and forth of what's more beneficial for this country, having the states with more power, having the federal government with more power? Does giving the federal government more power take away your freedom? You know, I think there's so much argument and there's so many different opinions, and people base a lot of their opinions on many things. Some of it fact, some of it experiences, and some of it just nonsense out there, fear tactics.
Okay, so I want to bring it back to how I started off the show. The United States Constitution. Now, that's the right to bear arms.
Right.
Now, that is all states. Now, why should we give each individual state the power to modify it or change it to see how they feel it should be? That should be nationwide.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't agree or disagree. I just know there's an argument on both sides. And it's funny talking to you being so passionate about this, and being a gun advocate and a gun owner and a hobbyist. And I mean, since I've known you, it's been something that's been a major interest of yours. I just know that it's great to hear that you're not taking sides one way or another. I'm seeing a little bit of both sides, and you don't see a lot of that in the paper today. You don't see a lot of that in the news. You see it's either I'm totally for, totally against, and I don't know if it's just depending upon the news station that's displaying it like that, because my understanding from polls are that a lot of people do want to enhance background checks and do want some common sense safety issues to be addressed.
Well, I know I've heard some unofficial studies, of course, that like 80% of people that carry legally actually are in favor of enforcing the firearms laws that we have out there. And the common sense firearms laws.
Right.
There's a way of protecting your rights and at the same time protecting the public. And I think that's what we need to look at doing. Use common sense.
And there's a lot of way to interpret that Second Amendment. And I think that's a big challenge, because you have different interpretations. One interpretation is where, people ask right off the bat, what is a well-regulated militia? You know what I mean? Is the guy in a corner going in there and just wanting to buy a rifle, does that give him the right? You know what I mean?
Here's my whole problem with that is I think that would have been fine to argue all that stuff back years ago,
right,
before 350 million guns made it throughout our country.
Right, and the type of guns too, I'm assuming.
Right. Because at this point, the guns are out there. Now we need to find a way of regulating the people that shouldn't be getting guns, like that are on a no-fly list, or that beat their wife on a regular basis, or that have been picked up for DUI 15 times, or people that just aren't safe with them. That to me is common sense gun law.
Interesting. We can talk about this for a long time. Like I said, I know you've been wanting to have this show for a while and discuss this issue, and this seemed to be there's no appropriate time, but this just seemed to be a time where it might make the most sense with everything going on, and we just hope that there could be unity within this country, and people actually, rather than picking a side, say, let's sit down, let's make it safer for the people around us, and let's start working together.
Well, I mean, the really sad thing about all this is, and this happened back with Newtown, and this happened with all the other big shootings, is a month from now, this will be pushed into the background, and everybody's agendas to get things passed, and that will have passed already. And unfortunately, these people are going to be forgotten about, and it's going to happen again.
One time or another, something's got to stick, don't you think? I mean, there's got to be something that.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
And like I said, you don't want to look at it in either extreme. You want people to have their rights. You want there to be a lot of safety out there, and like you said, common sense. And like we can go on and on about this subject. But
Especially me.
yeah, especially you, that's true. That's true. And you know, hey, let's look at the positive thing. We spent this whole time talking. We didn't mention Trump one time, so we can bring a little light.
Okay, well, now you did it.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm actually going to have to give him credit.
Uh-oh.
Because after all this happened, I mean, I don't know what his political reason is for this or whatever, but he actually said that he needs to sit down with the NRA and talk about restricting rights to people on the no-fly list about being able to buy firearms. I know it's a political move, but I am going to give him kudos for at least standing up to him.
Okay, yeah, well, let's see if by the next show if he still has that opinion or if he's changed it depending upon what serves. I don't know. I'm not saying pro or con, you know. I'm just.
Well, he had to redeem himself after his bad tweet after what happened over in Orlando.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he basically, you know, hey, sorry everybody's dead over there, but pat me on the back.
Yeah, that was pretty bad, and I know he's the kind of guy. I mean, he's been in power in his own industry so he's been basically a dictator of his own corporations and companies. So he has a lot of yes men around him. So yeah, he's not.
You're not going to hear it too often, but I actually do give him credit for this. Whatever his reasonings are, it doesn't matter. It's something that needs to be done.
Right. And like I said, you know, maybe more, if more people just said, hey, let's sit down, let's compromise, let's talk about certain things, there's a lot of that could be done. I think it's been pulled apart too much, and I'm not even going to go into, you know, you have the left on one side and the right on the other side saying who's pulling this country apart and not compromising. It's a big power struggle. I hate to see something with safety issues like this get pulled into that, and I do think it happened. You know, you put money into it, you put power into it, and it just corrupts everything.
Well, unfortunately, this is going to be something that's going to be very slow going. Any laws that are going to be passed are going to be fighting back and forth one way or another. Let's forget about passing new laws. Let's just make the ones that we have work just to start with.
You need a starting point.
We need a starting point.
And if you can agree to start somewhere and say, okay, let's give it this time and see where, you know, see the result, and maybe we can move on from there. Not see the result, that's not even a good way of putting it, but, you know, let's start with strengthening what we have, and then we could talk afterwards. It might be a starting point. I don't know. Let's see if they even get there.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to wait and find out what happens.
That's right.
Well, I think that's about it for today. I have my little rant. I'm sure I'll be having more.
I'm sure you will, and we'll be talking about this subject and many more in the upcoming weeks. It's getting really dirty out there, really crazy out there with everything going on. So we got topic after topic coming.
Yep, and don't forget to hit our website. We got some new stuff out there, and check it out.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a good one.